Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Jacksonville, this 80th meeting of the Jacksonville Tourism Development Authority. To welcome everybody in attendance. Thank you for being here, and thank everyone watching us on G10. Our first order of business today is an adoption of the agenda, which we do have additional items, a marketing report with Teresa and Susan Dozier, Teresa Beecham and Susan Dozier, and we're going to see a video at the end of the meeting regarding the New River Splash. So entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Great. We've got some minutes from the April 29th meeting, and unless there's any additions, corrections, I'll entertain the motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve minutes.
All right. Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, got the minutes approved. So tonight, our first item of new business is our promotions ad hoc committee reports. We've had several meetings over the past couple of weeks, got a lot of good information, and I'll call on Director Rick Davis to Chris Rick get that mixed up. Director Davis to give us the report.
So our promotions ad hoc committee met on Tuesday of this week, June 1st. And what we looked at was in front of you with our current promotion funds. Currently with tourism promotion, we have $314,527, and the promotion fund balance is $854,119, with a total of $1,168,646. So as we looked at the FY22 outlook, the expenditure requests are for Sturgeon City operations, $80,000. For the Sports Commission operations, $130,000. With DK Communications, $42,000. Viamark Advertising, $30,000. And our marketing plan of $154,432. Anticipated requests for events with the Grand Prix Series, $18,000. 2 charity balls with the Shriners, $25,000. Fashion Week, $10,000. The Arts Festival, $8,000. Engaged Onslow, $8,000. Oktoberfest, $20,000. The New River Splash Triathlon and Festival, $8,000. Jazz in the City, $8,000. Earth Day at Sturgeon City, $5,000. And the new Onslow Veterans Powwow, $10,000. And then the additional request for the East Coast Invitational Basketball Tournament through the Sports Commission, $2,000. And the Tough Mudder, $15,000, which would be a new event. So when we got to the requests, we looked at the budget request and $436,432. And then if we look at the anticipated event request, $137,000 for a total of $573,432. Anticipated revenue from these events, $314,527, which would leave us with a shortfall of $258,905. So in consideration of this, when we looked at the promotion fund balance of the $854,119, take away the shortfall of $258,905, it left us with a resulting fund balance of $595,214. And so we discussed a suggestion that we wanted to present today of utilizing up to 15% per year that balance to supplement the annual revenue during the remaining years of FLIP. In the FY22 scenario, it would be the revenue of $314,527, which was the anticipated revenue generated from the events that we would fund. And if we add that 15% of the fund balance, $127,000, It would bring us a total for the FY22 promotions budget, $441,527. The challenge that we discussed was in that scenario, the revenue, including that 15% fund balance, would give us the $441,527. The budget requests, however, are $573,432, leaving a shortfall, even with that 15% supplement, of $131,905. So some of the recommendations that we discussed in this meeting were a reduction in certain areas of these requests. For example, Sturgeon City operations, the request for $80,000. If we went forward with $50,000, the Sports Commission operations, $130,000. If we moved forward with $80,000, with DK Communications and Viamark, those would remain unchanged as we had discussed with the marketing plan that we had discussed in a previous session. The event grant recommendations was another area to consider with the Grand Prix Series, the 2 charity balls, Fashion Week, the Arts Festival, Engaged Onslow, Oktoberfest. The request was $20,000 if we were to move forward with 5 and look at it based on room nights generated by these events rather than just amount requested. Those events would also include New River Splash, Jazz in the City, Earth Day at Sturgeon City, and the new Onslow Veterans Powwow. With East Coast Invitational, there was a fee increase. The request was $2,000, but as we were discussing this, it felt more tourism related than it did promotions related. Same with Tough Mudder, that was a $15,000 to secure the event, but the question became, is it promotion related? Is it promotion related or tourism related? The reduction recommendations were, if we were to do that, it would obviously free up $30,000 from Sturgeon City, $50,000 from Sports Commission. Events would be something that we would discuss and just have to determine. With East Coast Invitational, would free up $2,000. Tough Mudder, the $15,000. For that total reduction of $97,000, which is still going to leave a remaining shortfall of $34,905. So there are certain budget decisions that obviously are needed by June 30th. That will be Sturgeon City funding, the Sports Commission funding, and the consultant contracts with DK Communications and Viamark. In addition to that discussion, the overall marketing plan that Teresa and Susan have spoken to us about, and the event grants. And so those were some of the, obviously that was the primary point of our discussion in our session earlier this week, that we wanted to present to the authority as a whole, and hear your thoughts and your feedback on that.
Very good. Thank you for that report. That's, we took a long time getting there, but that was a good concise report on what we've been wrestling with here, or wrestling, I can't remember, via this next year upcoming budget. I'm sure that there'll be lots of questions, or some questions, discussion. I mean, we've got, the flip put us in a position where our budget was pretty constrained. Thankfully, we had reserves to draw upon, but we just were seeing the fact that if we started taking a third, we would be out of reserves. So we have done these analysis and want to hear some, maybe a little feedback from the rest of the directors. I mean, we've been over this a lot, so it's a lot of information that we've digested, but this is the recommendations at this point in time.
Just a comment, one of the things that, the three of us that were on the tourism related, some of the requests that we looked at, we didn't feel that were really heads on beds type of events. And so y'all had you came to the same conclusion. What do we support? Well, we need to support heads on beds type things to really to fulfill our mission, I think.
Exactly.
So I think y'all did a good job of looking at that and paring some of those requests down too. And then obviously, those items that you feel are heads on beds but are not, that are heads on bed related but are not promotion related, I think you did right in kicking them over to the tourism related. So there's a lot to digest. It's just sort of,
Well,
especially as a new guy on the block, I still feel like I'm in the learning curve. So that was good information. So
And
thank
I
you.
feel like, too, that we felt somewhat pressured because we feel like we're in a unique point in time where the promotion could bring the greatest benefit as far as things turning around. We've seen, more activity. People are planning their trips now, so it's kind of like the old strike while the iron is hot. We got to spend the money to create the visits, and we've got to reallocate, like you said, we've looked at different parameters to try to make decisions by, statistically,
And
if you.
it's always tough when you have a group that you funded fully before. Now you realize, look, we don't have the money to continue to do that, and we need to think about what we're doing.
And we did look.
Takes a little bit of courage to cut some of that.
We did look closely at the organizations, and we know that via past history, these will not negatively impact. They will be able to do everything they've done in the past at these funding levels. I mean, that's been established. They're solid organizations. They've got their own reserves, and we definitely will continue to support them, but we didn't feel comfortable reducing our own reserves to augment another organization's reserves. I mean, that was the stance I took. Ken?
So what we're looking at is basically, in round figures, $300,000 worth of revenue per year is what we're bringing in right now. So we need to balance our budget to reflect that. If we continue on the road that we're on now, we're going to deplete our fund balance. Is that what I'm hearing?
If we took every request and granted it, then it would be a matter of 36 months. We've got 6 years left on this ratio of the flip. So we took our fund balance and was 6 years and came up with 15%. If we went straight 15% each year, then you could ride it out till the end. It wouldn't go completely down, hopefully, but it possibly could. We've got a budget amendment later tonight for some additional revenue, but again, you're not going to count your chickens before they hatch. We know we hopefully will have additional, but that's basically what we're
Well, I mean, the figures are the figures. If we have revenue
Right.
of 300,000, then that's what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the questions I would have is, what is this board's expectation for maintaining a fund balance? Is it $800,000? Is it $500,000? We haven't wrestled with that.
No,
Do we need to have a large fund balance on the promotion side? I see us having perhaps having a better fund balance on the related side than I do the promotion side. I think we have some obligation to spend our promotions to help those facilities that are drawing in that monies, that tax, that occupancy tax. So I don't know that I don't see us having a big fund balance on the tourism, on the promotion side.
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Right now, it's at 800,000.
Right.
What does the board, what do we feel is an appropriate fund balance? I mean, 800 seems a little high to me, but,
You know, yeah.
we have to have a comfort level of what our fund balance should be, and we should have a fund balance. But what is that comfort level? I think we need to have a discussion about that and come to some sort of understanding on what we feel comfortable with our fund balance. So
Actually,
that
we
we
have
can.
2 fund balances.
Right. Well, that's a good point. I mean, we haven't
Oh,
ever
you
had that
mean in the
discussion.
capitals or the other side?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm
Right.
I'm
I
dealing
know, I know.
with, I'm dealing with what's in front of me right now.
Again, I don't see us needing a large fund balance on the promotion side.
Right.
I mean, there may be a number, 100,000 might be a good number. I think you always should have some sort of a bank account to use if you have something comes up that you really wanna help.
Well, I agree. I mean, we wouldn't take it down to zero, obviously.
Right.
Um,
And that would be a good discussion to have, I think, in the future. as
I'm
far as-
going to throw this out there, and I just, it's a thought that I have. I mean, this is the first time I've seen this. It's a lot, it's not only a lot to digest quickly, it's also a lot to make a decision on quickly. And since we have a healthy fund balance right now, I would suggest that we fund everything that's on the table at the level that has been requested, and then sit down with each of the entities. This would give them a grace period. Sit down with each of the entities and tell them that in the future, it's probably not going to be this number. Here's where I'm going with this. I think if we hit the Sports Commission in Sturgeon City with this for their next budget, it's going to be a problem for them.
I disagree.
Okay,
Because
in
I've
what
seen,
regard?
with looking at their past performance, this will not negatively impact their ability to do what they've been doing. I've seen how they're doing, and they've been doing okay. So I'm not comfortable with just granting it because we want to grant it.
Well, I'm not suggesting long-term. I'm
Well,
just-
we have to make a decision today to help
We do?
them.
Have to make a decision today?
To help them prepare their budget that comes up July 1st. They need a budget just like we do.
Well, that's my point.
Right. So we have analyzed it, and this is what this side of the committee is comfortable with the facts as they are. Again, I'll say it again. I don't think it's a good idea to reduce our fund balance to increase someone else's fund balance. If that's succinct enough for plain. That just not, I don't think that's what we're here for. It's like Bob said, we need to spend the money to promote as much as we can. Our promotion money should go for promotion for things that have the opportunity to create visits. That's the result of our analysis.
Well, that should be the full board's, I mean,
Well,
that's
that's
our
why we're
mantra.
here. We're here for the full board's.
That's our mantra,
Right.
is that we have a criteria that we're following, and in order to receive funding, you have to follow that criteria. I support that 100%. I don't know, I'm just a little nervous letting these people know.
Feel like it's a little quick. Is that what you're,
That's
is that what I'm
my,
hearing from
that's
you?
my problem. That's my problem. It's just,
Well-
to me, it's a little quick. I don't say that, and you have more information than I do.
Right.
You've seen their,
Right.
well, actually, I've seen Sturgeon Cities.
Okay.
But with the healthy fund balance that we have, I don't see the need to rush it through this year. I think we need to give them a heads up and say, this is coming down the road, you need to readjust your budget. Because I think their budget's coming up too.
That's why we're feeling urgency to give them a decision that we are comfortable with, so they have the opportunity to modify their budget if need be.
So you're suggesting, based on the information that you've seen,
Right.
that they will
Could-
not have to?
Absolutely not. If it's the same as it was 2 years ago, or the last report, then this will not take away from their ability to perform the activities that they.
Mr. Chairman, let me clarify one thing. The two agencies have provided their tax returns from this past year. I apologize, the full committee has not seen those tax returns. And what I believe Mr. Thomas is referring to is the fact that both agencies show in their tax returns a significant amount of cash on hand. Would you like to elaborate on it?
As well as revenues over expenses for the year that we examined, that we saw. So there again, their revenue exceeded their expenses. We're looking at expenses exceeding our revenue. So we're all in this together. So I feel like we need to work diligently to make the best use of the money we have available.
If I may, a lot of these organizations that we fund, I do agree, they themselves have fund balance. They themselves have more revenue than we know. Okay, I wish I had the information to see what their fund balance is and how much they have to work with. Here's the other thing. I agree with Ken. I think the fund balance is very healthy. I think it's a little too healthy, in my opinion. The 15% that came up by the committee, I question where that came from and why couldn't we talk more about 10% or even 8%, which it used to be. I'm not sure if it really is now. The county had to keep in their fund balance in order statutorily, so that they didn't get audited or, come down and get taken over. But I'm thinking that 15% may be a little high. If it was cut down to 10, that would still help us as far as our revenue. But I'm more this way. If the organizations promote heads to bed, somebody mentioned that before, isn't that really what we're about and we're interested in funding? And the organization that does that, I think, needs to be rewarded. We started out in the beginning when I first joined tourism. We said, we're going to fund these organizations, give them what's called seed money. I know a lot of people don't like to use that term, seed money. But we wanted to give them enough to develop and then eventually reduce their budget. Ken knows that's what we talked about, and that was our whole philosophy. And what I'm trying to envision is us actually doing that, us actually weaning them off, as we said before. So that was our general philosophy, and I think fund balance is a little healthy, there's never too much fund balance, don't get me wrong. But I think it can afford to come down a little bit to help out. So.
Another question, the Sturgeon City, are they on a July 1 to June 30th?
Yes,
And I'm assuming the Sports Commission is also?
yes. And again, just as a point of reference, if we were to fund everything as requested, our fund balance would become in the neighborhood of those two organizations' fund balance. They would have as much as we do in their reserves, and we're the provider. Again, it's too much fund balance is not especially productive, because you're just taking the money, you're not reinvesting it. So I can appreciate that. But as far as being in a hurry to get rid of it, then that's not going to be efficient. You're going to spend it. If you're spending it in a hurry, it's not usually the best way.
Yeah, I was just questioning the 15%.
Well, that's just to begin with, because if you lower it now, it's even going to put more constraints on us this year, because we were in such a, we ended up behind the eight ball to begin with.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that we can't continue on the path that we're on. I understand, I mean,
Well,
that's
great.
pretty clear.
That's great.
My concern is that we're hitting these folks with this at the last minute. I mean, July 1st is.
Well, that's the
3 weeks
process. I
away.
don't understand how we would avoid that. I mean, as you say,
Well, I
but
just-
we can't write next year's budget this year anyway. We can only do this year's budget, as far as the way I understand it. I mean, we could send a signal, but I think this is, the organizations will be in a position to handle the new request, I mean, the new figures. I mean, I can tell you from what I understand that
I think, I don't think Ken disagrees with reducing the funding.
No, I don't.
okay.
What the problem is in his mind, the timing, and you're correct, they very well may have enough money in their account balance to handle the shortfall or the funding cut. But I think Ernie or somebody else mentioned that we're partners in this. If you're a partner, you want to communicate, whenever you're doing something drastic, somebody's budget, you want to give them enough heads up to where they can at least digest it. Are we being a good partner, just cutting their funding at the last minute? I may still lean, in your way on this argument, but.
I mean, it's out
what-
of courtesy? Is that
well,
of courtey
well,
that we're
yeah, a
supposed to
little bit.
deplete
I mean,
our fund balance to augment theirs? I mean,
Remember when the county changed the sales tax funding formula? We felt like that it was,
Right.
there was no warning, boom, here we are, we're a month or so away from needing to pass our budget, and we get hit with the change. We're doing the same thing, and, here we thought we might have been partners somewhat with Onslow County, or at least on a little friendlier terms. We do have some obligation to give them a little more heads up. I'm a little concerned about the short timing.
well, I can appreciate
Realizing,
that.
though, that they may be perhaps in better financial shape than we are, I don't know, but
Oh,
without having seen
absolutely.
the
Well,
documents.
Absolutely.
Bob-
And the Sports Commission is requesting an additional person. I mean, they're not even talking about what they're on, they're just wanting an additional 50,000
Well-
to start with a new person.
Well, I
to,
think,
you
I
know,
think, I think Ernie's correct in that we probably need to start doing some weaning, and I know we have to take that first step, and I think I share Ken's concerns that it's awfully quick for their budget year this year. If we were back in February or March, maybe I wouldn't feel quite the same I feel now, but, this is kind of quick cut in there.
Again, the analysis that we did
Okay.
showed that this will not negatively
You're
impact.
asking us to trust you, and I guess that's probably what I'm gonna lean on when I vote.
Right. I mean-
I'm gonna trust you that you've seen the information, we have not.
We just came out of a year where this past couple of meetings, we spent an additional, I forgot the amount that 150,000 that we put out of our fund balance in this year that we're in. So now you'd be talking about depleting your fund balance $400,000 in 24 months. I mean, that's just not prudent in my estimation. Again, these organizations ran significant positive cash flows over the past couple of years. So again, I'm not comfortable emptying my wallet to augment their wallet. I mean, if there was something going on that was generating visits and something exciting around the corner, then possibly, but still, I mean, there's never a great time, I guess, for something like this. But like I said, if we want to do it, then if they demonstrate a need, maybe we can change it next year. But at this point, we're trying to focus on promotions that will generate results.
We just got a late start in getting this whole process going.
Right.
And I think it's unfortunate, we're gonna end up giving them bad news kind of at the last minute, but I'm I realize we need to take care of ourselves first. I understand that.
So,
So
Ernie,
if I may ask, okay, recommend TBD, obviously to be determined.
right.
What figures are gonna go there then? Is there any set percentage of figures that we have in mind? For example, New River Splash requested 8,000. What is it gonna be determined? What are we gonna recommend that they get? 30% of that, 50% of that? I mean, is there any?
We talked about that a little bit, and we really didn't have a good feel as far as the criteria we wanted to use. We had some ideas, but we wanted to discuss them with some of our other partners, specifically marketing, to know that what we did was appropriate or even effective at all. So those are further down the line. We have the opportunity, to make those commitments and to get that additional information. But these are the issues that are time sensitive at this point.
Well, if I'm reading this correctly, and if there are other people on this board that feel like I do, that this is a quick situation, if we reduced our fund balance, $258,000 to fund it this year, we would still have a fund balance of $600,000.
Which would be equal to the two organizations that you're talking about. So those two organizations' fund balance would exceed ours. If that's what you're comfortable with.
I'm just pointing that out.
Well,
I am
I'm
uncomfortable.
pointing that out,
I am
too.
uncomfortable with the swiftness of this information and the swiftness of making a decision today. That's what I'm uncomfortable with. I don't have a problem. Look, I can read the figures.
Okay.
We have overextended ourselves. We have over-obligated ourselves to these organizations. That's our fault. That's our fault. And I'll accept the blame along with everybody else. We want to correct that. I agree with that. I disagree with the method that we're using to do that. I think we ought to give them more time. And if we want to readjust the figures, I don't have a problem with that. But to simply, I do have a problem with slashing them without any prior notice for them. You're telling me their fund balance is
In excess of
well enough to
excess of
take care of it.
300,000 in each
But they
organization.
have
And
obligations with that fund balance.
I appreciate that, but the organization, one of them has been running a positive $100,000 a year cash flow,
Which organization?
Sturgeon City,
$100,000 a year?
for the past 2 years. The Sports Commission has been averaging around $50,000 positive for the past 2 years. Again, if we feel like taking $50,000 or $100,000 from our bank account and putting it in their bank account, if that's what we want to do, then I guess we have the authority. But I thought our goal was to promote visitors, promote tourism. $100,000 in the bank does not promote tourism, in my opinion. That's just
Mr.
my
Chairman.
opinion.
That was part of what made this meeting so, one of the challenges that went along with it. I see the point. It is quick. If you look at it objectively with the numbers, it is what it is. But it was part of what made this one a little bit of a challenge.
Mr. Carter?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as I understand the recommendation, I just want to make sure, is the Sturgeon City 50,000, Sports Commission 80,000, DK Communications 42, Viamark 30, 5,000 to Oktoberfest, and then...
No, we're just talking about these.
These four, okay.
These four you're talking about.
The TDA could take that action today. You're meeting again on June, I think your next meeting, according to my paper, is July the 29th. So this is your last meeting in June. Do we, unless someone has a schedule that shows.
I don't think that's correct. Technically, today's meeting is your May meeting.
Okay, let's look at the,
Because we had some difficulty. My recollection is that your next meeting is the fourth
Okay.
Thursday in June.
then that's a typo then.
So-
And on
It
the
says
agenda.
July 29th on mine.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what I
we changed the schedule, I'm not quite sure what it is, but.
But the point being, y'all can meet anytime you want to. I mean, you're just like the city council. Y'all have the right to call meetings. So I think where Mr. Carter's headed is,
You have amended these budgets during this past year, correct?
Right.
Sports Commission came with a request saying, I need some more money for X, and you've granted that. My point being, you can amend their budgets, their allocations, at any time you want to. If you went ahead and made some determination today, whatever you want to do or not do, again, at least they know they've got something to bank on for their budgeting. But again, after you have a chance to review more documents, have a chance to hear more explanations, et cetera, you can always go back and have gone back and amended what you gave to these organizations. You've made, Mr. Hagan, am I correct? You've made additional allocations to the Sports Commission for different things. So again, you can always change what you allocate to them down the road. Now, it's y'all's call, but again, you always have that authority to do that. To up it, you certainly can't take it down, I don't think, once you've made the budget, but you can always increase it if you came back and heard explanation that said, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that money was secured and you had to do it over here and that wasn't operating, et cetera. Whatever you may get, but you can always do that. Again, give folks more further time to do it, but at some point in time, either today or if we have a meeting in the end of July, which Richard's probably correct and the agenda is incorrect, then you can do it then. But if you do something then and you do the cutting of the budget as you're talking about here or their request, then you're certainly giving them only a day's notice or something. They probably will already have their budget adopted. So again, I think some decision needs to be made, but you can change it.
If I can follow up, based on me reading what's been put in front of us, there are 8 organizations that has TBD next to it, okay? If we were to proceed now and vote to approve the recommendations that are listed on this document here, the 4 or 5 that you had mentioned, I think it's 4.
4.
Yeah, that's been mentioned. What happens to the other 8? In other words, yeah, you say we can do budget amendments beyond today, which is possible, I understand that. But we still have to come up with a figure. They've got to still do their budgets.
And that's why, I know we're talking about the 4, but I thought Oktoberfest, there was a recommendation for 5,000 for it to go ahead and
that's right.
and to be
Right,
done
that's fine.
today, because they need that money to plan for Oktoberfest, which really is not that far away. Now, as far as the ECI basketball or the Tough Mudder, I don't know the time frame there, but they may need a decision by y'all today to go ahead and expend that out of the tourism-related money that you've said that's where you think it should come from, not promotion money. But the to be determined means to be determined, TBD. That's up to y'all to determine it at a future date, depending upon how quickly they need a decision for their scheduling and their budgeting of these particular events, because some of them are not as I guess y'all considered some of them don't have to be decided today, but rather could be decided.
Well, some of them haven't made the application yet. We're just assuming some of them from past
It's based
history.
on
Right,
past
from
history.
past history, so.
Well, let me ask the question. The ad hoc committee obviously has done their due diligence, and I appreciate that. When you met with, and I'm going to name 2 organizations, the Sports Commission in Sturgeon City, and they relayed to you the reasons for their fund balance, did it make sense? Did they give feedback that you took into consideration as to why their fund balance was the way it was? Because I know.
We actually did it as a follow-up with some correspondence, email correspondence, so it wasn't, we didn't have a discussion per se. We just got some information back that kind of gave general guidelines for, you know, how they operated and what these fund balances encompass, so.
So we don't know what obligations they have with their fund balance?
We got it.
let me address that. I apologize for interrupting you, sir, but the question was asked. My understanding from the material that we received from Sturgeon City was that roughly half of their fund balance is an endowment fund balance, that once it was raised, it actually can't be spent. You know, hopefully one of these days we're going to have real interest-bearing accounts again. certainly any of us who have cash in the bank know that we're really bringing in some big interest payments every month. So my understanding is that roughly half of their money is in a endowment, and it can't be spent on an annual basis. The other part of theirs is spendable, unobligated money. When it comes to the Sports Commission, my understanding from the material is that they are trying to build up a one-year reserve that any nonprofit is recommended, just like government, in the days that you ran city government, you got to have a fund balance so that in case things like COVID come along or a hurricane come along and wipe out your funding, you got to have operational money. And so their goal was to have, to build up that reserve for that purpose. So that's the answer to that question. Mr. Wright, if I may, while I have the floor, mention this. As we have talked to the ad hoc committee, we do have several applications in, and let me just give you an example. While I don't have the application in front of me, I will try to do this from memory. The event, which is called the Onslow Veterans Powwow, they're asking for $10,000. And the justification is that they're going to bring in 1,800 room nights. Okay? That, to me and to the committee, we need to talk to them and find out more. Really? They're saying they can get 900 room nights 2 nights in a row. That's an awfully good return for $10,000.
I agree.
On the other hand, and let's just be specific, Oktoberfest, $20,000 request, that's up from 10 last year, and they produced an estimated 45 room nights. One of the challenges that you as a committee face and the promotions committee, ad hoc committee faced, is what is the relationship between the investment made by TDA and the return, not to the community, that it was a great community event. I mean, we all will tell you, every one of these events that are on here helped build this community. The real unfortunate question, that's the hard question that y'all have to face, is, okay, they're great events, but is it the TDA's job to take money that comes from hotel revenue to fund an event that doesn't put heads on beds? And that's why, again, I will be quite frank with you, Oktoberfest, you know, there was discussion, should we give them anything since they want $20,000 but only produce 45 room nights and really can't even document that? Those are the tough things that y'all have to wrestle with because, you know, as a community, we all want these things to build us as a cultural center. On the other hand, you look at the charity balls. They're documenting 200 room nights each event, 400 room nights. You look at Earth Day, $5,000 for 5 room nights. The New River Splash, we're still waiting for some information on that. Going back a page, Engage Onslow, we don't have any information there. The Arts Festival, maybe. Fashion Week, we know that they turned a lot of hotel rooms. So, and the Grand Prix Series. So a lot of these things that are on there, y'all are going to have to decide what is the litmus test? What is the criteria that you as a committee are comfortable with in saying, yeah, we will give you $10,000, but we're only going to give it if you can show us this, this, and this. And once again, you know, everybody thinks I'm not supportive of some of these things. My job is not to be supportive or not supportive. My job is just to give you food for thought and data. If Oktoberfest turns out 12,000 people, that's a phenomenal thing for this community. But is it, if it only produces 45 heads on beds, is it something that TDA money should spend $20,000 advertising? I'll even give you one that strikes very home for us. The city government has requested in the past money for Winterfest, and y'all have been kind to give it. But in my new relationship with y'all, I have to tell you, I don't think you should be giving Winterfest anything. It's a great event. We turn out 10,000 people. They play in the snow. We have a great time. We kick off Christmas. But how many heads on beds does Winterfest put in? The answer is almost none. On the other hand, let's talk about basketball. You talk about events. You're coming up on the 23rd and 24th of this month with the East Coast Invitational with Wells Gulledge. This community is fortunate that Wells Gulledge has been dedicated to bringing that here year after year after year. This year, he's bringing in 32 teams. He will pack the hotels for almost no money that he's asking from y'all. So, that's the dilemma that any funding agency has is we're not like the federal government where we can just print. We have to live in a budget. Mr. Hagan makes a very good point. You have to be careful how you spend your fund balance. We also, as Mr. Warden said, there's some fund balances that I think you need to protect, such as in the tourism related, and there are other fund balances that you have to say, these are good things for the community. So you have tough decisions.
To interrupt you, however, one thing you brought up is fund balance. Out of these 8 organizations to be determined, do we know what their fund balance is so that we could come up with a figure? Don't you feel that that's important?
I do, and I think that's something that's not on the application that we can ask.
Well, you raised some very good points, but let's go back to Oktoberfest. They have requested $20,000. Did they document it, or did they just say they had 45 rooms? Which was it?
No documentation, just said their estimate was 45 rooms.
Okay. Let's take the estimate for the sake of argument. This board needs to decide what 45 rooms represent in an investment. 20,000, it doesn't represent. I think we would all agree on that. But it does represent something.
Well, let me answer your question that you're asking. At $120, because we've done this with the committee, at an average price of $120, 45 rooms produces, Mr. Thomas?
What's the question again? I was thinking about something else.
I believe it's $6,000 or less.
What's the figure?
I believe it's less than $6,000. Who has a calculator real quick?
No, that's good enough. That's good enough.
$6,000.
Okay, so when we get this request in front of us as a board,
Get out your computer. Type that in.
as a board, we need to say, okay, they're saying they're going to generate, I'll use round figures, 50 rooms. It's going to be $6,000 a night. They're asking for $20,000. We're not going to give them $20,000. We're going to give them something close to $6,000. Now, there is, to me at least, there is a little bit of a spin-off. And you go back to Winterfest and some of these other things. And I've known all along that we were funding things that probably didn't meet our criteria. And quite honestly, I was comfortable with that to a certain degree. We also have to look within ourselves as to what our philosophy needs to be. Now, everything, and this is just me talking, everything that we're going to fund may not return on the investment the way that we want or originally was quoted. It's up to us to make that adjustment. But we also need to understand that there is a spinoff. And let's take the Arts Council, for instance. They have do they still sponsor the jazz?
Yeah.
Okay.
They donate about $3,000.
So we know that's a benefit to the community. So I'm comfortable, personally, with saying anything that, well, not anything, but some things that are a benefit to the community need to be looked at as a possible funding from the TDA. That's part of our philosophy. Now, it's obvious, having these discussions, that we're not doing what we should be doing. So we can take care of that. This board can take care of that, and we can do it very quickly. So that's one of the first orders of business in my eyes, is let's clean our act up. Let's have some criteria. Let's have some flexibility to that criteria so that we can catch things that, you know, at first glance may not be things that we want to. But in the second year, boy, it really comes back to us. If they say they've, let's use the example you said, what did you say, 1,500 rooms? Whatever that.
1,800.
1,800 rooms. Well, man, if they do that, that's great. But you know what? We pretty much believe, since we're in this business, they're not gonna have 1,800 rooms. Do we even have 1,800 rooms in the whole town?
It was room nights, there was 2 nights. We did.
Okay, but the point is, we could look at that and say, your request is $50,000, we are going to fund you at a different level, and if you produce what you say you're going to produce, next year, your funding could be greater. That's what our role is, that's what our job should be, that's what we should be doing. Now, if we need help from the staff to do that, then that's what we'll have to, you know, look at. But I agree with you 100%. If we're going to have an organization that's giving out money, and we're going to have rules and regulations, we need to follow them, and we need to make them available to the people that are requesting the money, and then we need to make them follow it. I'm all for giving somebody $20,000 this year based on their criteria, and nothing next year because they didn't meet their obligation. I don't have, that should be what we're doing. Now, you know, I'm rambling on here, but I can tell you that we need to clean up our act first. And it won't take us long because we have, all of us understand and know what our criteria is. And we need to stick with it, and that's our criteria. And when somebody comes in front of us and says, we'd like to have $20,000, we need to be able to look them in the eye and say, you are not producing information to us that warrants $20,000. We like your idea, we like your program, and we will give you $5,000. Next year, if you do what you say you're going to do, that could be increased. That's the way we should be doing it. I've said enough.
Yeah, that's all well and good. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need established criteria, guidelines, parameters, expectations, and those kind of things. I guess we need to.
Excuse me, before we vote, John, I have a question for you.
Yes.
As you know, I serve on the board for the Sturgeon City. Do I need to excuse myself?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And your next meeting is June the 24th. And your schedule that you adopted on April 29th is no meetings in July and August.
Okay.
So you said June 24th?
June 24th is your next meeting.
So we will have another meeting this month, 3 weeks from today. Okay, great.
And Mr. Hagan, I did research that today because I knew you served there. And of course, your executive retired off the Sports Commission. But again, you have no financial interest in either of those groups and just serve as a volunteer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I would like for the general public to know that.
Yes, sir.
Because these votes are important. Are you looking for a motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we fund the request in front of us at the level that people have asked for this year only.
Can you itemize that, Mr. Hagan, for the record? So are we just talking about the 4, or are we going over here to all the other?
Well, the to be determined is not involved because we don't know what that figure is.
Were you talking about Oktoberfest?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we got 5. So I second.
I will stipulate by saying the 5.
I understand what the motion is now.
And I have seconded.
I need a little clarification. What are you exactly saying?
I'm
Are
saying
we talking
that
about, is there a page number that I could turn to that?
It's
that has
the
what
requested
you-
amount, the FY '22 recommendations on the, except it's the requested amount. That
I
would
think you just passed it. Go back.
It'll come back up. Have faith, John.
You sure?
Iron out.
No, you got to go the other way.
Okay.
I believe, Mr. Hagan, I believe your motion is shown on the board of
Ex-
Oktoberfest, Sports Commission, DK, and Weimar.
And
His motion included $20,000 for Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So any further discussion?
I thought his
You're right.
motion would include recommending 5,000 for Oktoberfest.
He's saying, he's just saying granting request. We're not making any recommendations. They're just whatever they ask for.
Yeah,
He's ready.
whatever the amount was that they
They
requested.
request,
I'll repeat the motion as I understand it. Mr. Hagan's motion is to grant the following requested money: Sturgeon City, $80,000; Sports Commission, $130,000; DK Communications, $42,000; Viamark, $30,000; and the Oktoberfest, $20,000.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright, you have a,
I'm looking at the board and I'm looking at TBDs there, so
don't,
Well, all the TBDs are to be determined later, right?
Right.
We'll wrestle
Right.
with those. as they
So
come
John, did you
forward.
read Sports Commission, 130,000?
Yes, sir.
Oktoberfest, 20,000.
I see it, and Oktoberfest. All right, I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by.
Don't you want any discussion? I mean, I'm not going to say anything else, but some of the others may want to.
We had a lot of discussion, but I would like to hear from you.
I'm probably going to vote against it, even though I'm very uncomfortable with the timing of this, with those, in regards to those two, Sturgeon City and Sports Commissions. I'm uncomfortable with our timing, but on the other hand, as Mr. Carter pointed out, that if they come back to us and say, we need additional funding and here's why, then at least I would have an opportunity to reconsider. So I'm probably gonna vote against, Mr. Hagan's motion at this point, just because, even though I share his concern over timing.
Thank you.
And I agree before we vote, that timing is not the greatest, but I defer to the committee for doing their research and everything, and I respect their recommendation and request. So that's probably why I vote against it.
Let me add one point of clarification before you vote. Sturgeon City in the past, I'm sorry, let's do that a third time. Oktoberfest in the past has only received $10,000. Their request is actually for twice the money that they've ever received. So just so that you'll understand, because I recognize you haven't seen all the applications. Of course, we haven't seen all the applications. That's why most of them have TBD beside them. But in fairness, the philosophy that I'm hearing from certain members is they should be kept where they are and given the chance to understand they're going to go down. Before you make the vote on the motion, you need to know that one of these five is not staying where they are. They're getting twice the money that they've had in the past. So I just want the people who made the motion and the rest of the board of directors to understand just that
Right.
fact.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second, we have had plenty of discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye. Right hand.
Okay, okay, and all those opposed to the motion? Aye and left hand. Okay.
Let me
So-
give you, if I can, let me give you some food for thought. I think there is validity to weaning people off. What I've heard from the board is people need to be weaned off. I can also appreciate that, that the recommendations are substantial and without a lot of notice. Maybe one of the things that you want to do is look at and I'm going to go back now if I can figure which way I'm supposed to go. I think I'm supposed to go back to here. to there. Maybe one of the things that you consider doing is saying, okay, going from 80 to 50 and from 130 to 80 is drastic. That what you want to do is say something in between. That for the coming year, you are putting people on notice that financially we cannot continue because it just isn't a sound financial plan. But that what we're going to do is let you know that, for example, instead of 80,000, no, we're not going to cut you to 50,000 in 1 year, but we're going to cut you somewhere in between. With the understanding that a year from now, be ready to be at that 50,000 level or some level. All I'm saying is there are many options. The key, from what I'm hearing, is you all agree that the financial pro forma that we're seeing for promotions is not sustainable. So what you have to do is figure out how do you gradually get yourself into a budget that's sustainable. So one of the options would be to do exactly what's on that board as recommended. Another would be to come up with something in between that allows people to step by step realize that the funding from TDA is going to be reduced. Now with that, I've done a lot more talking than I like to do in these meetings, so I'm going to put it back for y'all.
With the opportunity for another motion, and I appreciate what you said, but I appreciate what Mr. Carter said too, that we have the opportunity to amend the budget, and we need to have some closure on this of some sort at this point. And as far as massaging the numbers, we mentioned we can do that later, but I think they need some finality, especially on the
Let me ask a quick question. Gail, the 314, is that based on the new revised number of 1,266,000? I didn't do the math real quick.
No, that's next year's budget at 975, I think was.
314 in your estimation is going to go up for FY '22.
If we continue to see the numbers following the same trend they are right now, yes.
Based on your revised of 1,266,000, you are anticipating more than 314,000.
There could be, yes. We adopted a budget of $975,000.
You should have been an attorney.
I took a whole day class on how to be a professional witness.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I think hearing everyone here, at least, maybe not appeasing everybody, but I think I'd like to recommend that we fund Sturgeon City at the $65,000 level, Sports Commission at the $100,000 level. I would ask that we Sturgeon City at the TBD, but excuse me, Oktoberfest, thank you for that look. Oktoberfest at TBD, to be determined as we see fit. And to also, as part of that, also to DK and Viamark at the current levels that they see there, with the caveat that we put Sturgeon City and Sports Commission on notice that they are going to be looked at very strongly, that we don't know at this point what that number might be, but it will certainly not be at the current 80,000, 130,000. May not even be at what we're going to be funding them in FY '22. We'll look at that. We really want to make sure that we're not tying the hands of a future board, but we certainly need to look at a sustainable budget, and we don't have that yet. And we're not going to do that under this one, but we're going to get at least try to be a little better partner with our partners in giving them some little better heads up. I don't disagree with your assessment that we may be adding to their fund balance while depleting ours, but I think, as Mr. Hagan pointed out, we need to get our act together first, and I just really was uncomfortable just pulling the rug out from underneath them this quick, but giving them some notice, giving them a good chunk of what they want, I think is a good compromise, and that's my motion.
Okay, got a motion? Looking for a second?
Second, so we can have discussion.
All right, got a second, so we have more discussion?
No, my discussion is very simple. I can support that motion. I don't think it goes back to, against what I have just fought for. And a little something's better than nothing, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it as an opportunity for them to get their situation straight if they're going to have a problem. And I appreciate the manager pointing out that Oktoberfest, because I overlooked that, had doubled their request. I would probably be uncomfortable doubling there. So that's a good part of that motion, so I can support that.
Okay. Anybody else? Great. So all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we will move on to our next point of business, which is the tourism-related ad hoc committee report.
Well, wait a minute. Don't we need to deal
Oh,
with the
that's true,
Sports
the Sport
Commission?
Commission. Oh, that's right.
Two
That was part
requests.
of the discussion, which I think that was essentially, we were just analyzed those and did not meet the criteria for the promotion category. We were hoping that these would be funded via the tourism-related category.
Okay,
that's-
so we're
that's-
going to move that into,
We need to get a
the
motion.
funding's going to be moved into the other,
I think it's appropriate to have a motion, and that be paid out of the tourism-related, if that's what you want to do.
Sure.
yes, sir.
that's-
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, great. Okay, so now we'll move on to the tourism-related ad hoc committee report. Who's your spokesman? Oh, Ken. There you go.
Are you serious?
Oh,
What do I do with this? Anybody know how to work this?
Rick.
Dr. Woodruff does.
Actually,
What do I click?
He's got it.
What do I click? What do I click? All right, we met, I'm not even sure of the date. What was the date we met? 19th, okay. We had a very lively discussion. It was a good discussion. And before I go any further, I want to thank the members of the city staff for helping us work our way through this. They brought us a lot of information. I think Anthony's going to have some slides that we can look at. And this, of course, is the funding aspect of it. We have a Sturgeon City debt payment of $150 that comes out every year, signage and other projects, TBD. And the total per year that we're receiving right now in this fund is $629,148. Does have a sunset clause. Everybody needs to understand that. I think we still have 6 years to go. If we stay at that funding level, you can anticipate in the next 6 years another $3 million coming into that fund. We have unassigned a balance of 2.3 in that fund right now. Okay. Signage. You know what? Anthony, you can do a much better job on this than I can.
Yes, sir. I'll
So
be
why
happy
don't
to
you-
pick it up from here if you
Why
don't
don't you
mind.
do the signage, please?
So, for the past several years, we've been talking to the TDA about two different sign programs, one being for the downtown and the other being for DOT. Reason being is because DOT has different rules than the city does. So we can have two different types of signs for those two different applications. If you've been downtown lately, you've probably seen a sign that looks like this. We're coming towards the end of that project, and we're installing 12 signs downtown. Total project is around $28,000, which seems like a lot, but if you recall, when our consultant provided the estimate for this, I don't know how many years ago, it was going to be over $50,000. So it was roughly a savings of about 30. And that's mainly because we designed it in-house and we installed it in-house. So these are some very attractive new additions to downtown. Now, on the DOT front, we're having to deal with different materials. There's going to be more of these signs because we're looking at placing them along all of the major DOT roads, Western, 24, 17, et cetera. And so this is the wide net that we're going to cast, to bring people into the various destinations that we want to promote. This is a DOT compliant sign. They've signed off on it. Pun intended, I guess. Huh? But at this point, the project has kind of been set on hold for a period of time. And what we're doing right now is, with the approval of the ad hoc committee, we're going out and we're getting some more information on how much it would actually cost to roll this thing out and put these types of signs all over Jacksonville. Initially, the program designed by the consultant had about 150 of them, and we've scaled it. That's a lot of signs. So we rightfully scaled it back, both in the construction type as well as the number, to make it a much more attainable project. All said and done, we think this is going to cost about $47,000. But that's, I guess, pre-COVID numbers. We'll have to see what the post-COVID numbers are, and we will present that to the ad hoc committee at the next meeting. Do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So on the Lejeune Memorial sign project, we met as an ad hoc committee. The sign that we had previously presented was really unattainable in the locations, et cetera. And so we have downsized the sign. This is kind of the prototype that we're looking at. It's just 16 feet wide. It wouldn't be a curved sign. The location that we are investigating now with the base is at the entrance of the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, to the left of that main entrance. And so we've picked that area. It has a couple of different favorable locations. It's within the right-of-way of a Department of Defense road, and so DOT would not be involved. And because we're within that right-of-way, there's some flexibility that the base has in allowing us to construct a sign. If we were trying to construct a sign of this nature within NCDOT's right-of-way, they would not allow it. We're also looking at the ability that it's because it's within that right-of-way, that there's hopefully no additional environmental approvals that we would have to get, or that we wouldn't also have to get an easement from the Department of Defense. If we have to secure an easement, it costs us $10,000 and about a year and a half of waiting. And so we are working with them now to secure kind of a preliminary assessment of this sign, and then we'll work on next steps moving forward. The goal is for us to hire a contractor to install the sign. That would be less than $30,000, and then use city staff to install the landscaping and any uplighting for the sign.
And if I might add one thing, the $30,000 number is very important for this project as well as the next one, okay, because of what general statute requires from a contracting perspective. So if it goes over 30, right?
It goes over 30,000, then a licensed general contractor has to be the one who pulls the permit. And you only need a permit if the sign is higher than 6 feet. So you can see we've identified it at 5 feet, so we can kind of stay under that threshold. And in speaking with the base, all they need for approval is a concept. So we don't have to pay a designer to construct the sign, nor would we have to get any building permits, because the city personnel does not have access to inspect any construction that's on DOD property.
So less than 6 feet, less than 30,000 is kind of our ticket to success on this.
Yep. And so likewise, the Beirut Memorial sign, this was the sign that we had talked about before. It's grand, it's beautiful, but it's way more than what we need to spend. This estimate was, I think just for the sign, and the site work was pretty extensive, was about $125,000. So as you can see, we're going from 125 down to 30. And so the thought is that we want to convey the same look and feel, again, tying it back to wayfinding. So the sign that we're going to hopefully get approved for the Lejeune Memorial Gardens will be the same look and feel here. So at the Beirut Memorial Garden, same concept, and it'll be larger though because of the speed of the traffic, but we are focusing right now on getting the approval from the Lejeune Memorial Gardens sign first, and then we'll apply that same concept to the Beirut Memorial signage. We had some healthy discussions on the Welcome Center. I think the concept for us is that we just need more information. This is a project that the ad hoc committee is very much interested in, but really, in order for us to proceed, the ad hoc committee has requesting a joint session with council, and I think we have tentatively looked at June 22nd as a meeting date, and that is really an opportunity, from my understanding, to not speak just about the Welcome Center, but an opportunity for the TDA to engage with City Council.
And the intent with this update is to, of course, seek concurrence from the entire Board of Directors as to whether or not that's an appropriate next step, is to speak with City Council.
And on that joint, on the concept of the joint, because of other city council business that evening, we're going to ask the TDA if they might be available at 3:30, and the city council to be available at 3:30. That way you could have a good hour and 15 or an hour and a half discussion in joint session on matters before council convenes for their normal 5 o'clock meeting. So if you would please check your calendars, not asking you to commit tonight.
June
but that is
22nd.
Tuesday, June 22nd at 3:30 here in the chamber. And if that doesn't work, well, Kim will be sending you out a notice, or the clerk's office will be sending you out a notice on that. Thank you.
How solid is that date? I'm not available on that date.
That's the next city council meeting.
Okay.
But we can check on other dates. Now, the city council does take the month of July off. I do believe, Mr. Hagan, it's important for you to be here for that. So if we need to push that into August, I think that for some other things that we've discussed, that may actually be beneficial, but
Thank you so much to staff for updating us on that. One of the things, there's a couple of things that have to happen tonight. First of all, we wanted the full board to see the signs. We wanted you to see what they look like. We wanted you to kind of give us the okay. I don't think it's appropriate to just have signs and not have this board, see what they look like. So I guess the first thing is, can we put the signs back up, please?
How far do you want to go back, sir?
Well, those are okay, this one, How does the board feel about this look?
Looks fine to me. I mean, it's,
May I interject? One of the items that was discussed during the ad hoc committee meeting was some people are more visual. And so what we wanted to do was, after we got concurrence from the base on the concept, that we were going to then put a prototype of the sign, scale-wise, and actually put it where we think we're going to actually construct it. And that would allow you and the public and also the Lejeune Memorial Garden stakeholders to see what that sign's going to look like. And then we can adjust if maybe the sign looks too big, because we want it to be grand for what it is. And we also don't want to make a mistake that maybe it needs to be larger than what we think it needs to be. So that was, if the committee's okay with the dimensions, then that would be our next step, is to work on a prototype. And it's just a banner. We can do that all in-house.
sounds good, yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
Move on, sir, if I may add. One thing to keep in mind when you're looking at this sign as well as the other one is that the specific design is intended to follow some of the branding that we see around Jacksonville and on Camp Lejeune. So it's intended to blend into more of the branding package for our area so that it's consistent with other destinations that folks might visit.
Now, everybody, I think, needs to understand that the one out on the highway is going to have two signs,
Yes, sir.
the Memorial Grove. You'll have a sign on the 17 side and then the sign on
Coming back the
on
other
the
way.
bypass side. So I think all the members need to understand that site requires two signs.
So if you were coming into town kind of the old-fashioned way, right, past the DMV office, et cetera, there would be a sign on that side. And then if you were going out of town from the bypass to Highway 17, kind of where you had the best view, that's where probably the first sign would end up.
Again, I want to compliment the staff for the work that they're doing, and we really need to compliment them for holding the cost down, because as you can see, they've done a lot of legwork to, make this happen on the military side, but also on the cost side. So I want to compliment you for that, and I want to say I appreciate that. The other thing that the ad hoc committee discussed, gave no direction on, other than to say that we want to take a look with the city council on a sports-orientated location. And we do know that the city is in the process of trying to find some property for recreation, I guess we can say. And so I think a conversation with the council, a very in-depth conversation, would bring both of us to an understanding of what we're looking at and where we are at this present time and where we need to go. Because I believe personally that we are at the crossroads, that we are right here with the ability to make something happen for Jacksonville and Onslow County that has never happened before. We have some money that will be available. Hopefully, we'll have some land that will be available. It would be my desire that we sit down with other stakeholders to see if they would be interested in a project of this magnitude. If they say no, fine. I believe personally that the city and the TDA can do this together. But if other stakeholders want to be a part of it, we need to give them the opportunity, and that's a discussion, obviously, with City Council. So we wanted the full board to be aware that the ad hoc committee had discussed that, and that would be hopefully one of the subjects on the agenda when we meet with the council.
Very good.
So that's our report. Again, I want to thank the staff for assisting us in that. They did a great job.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ken. We appreciate that. Okay, we've got a third item on our agenda for a legislative budget amendment. I assume we need to,
Mr. Chairman, before we
Okay.
proceed, I thought there were two items left on the Sports Commission, East Coast Invitational Funding, and the Tough.
we did that.
Rudder funding.
We ran those.
We've already approved the East Coast funding already.
Yeah.
I thought we
The
were switching,
transfer.
discussion was that they were going to transfer it into the other,
Right.
transferring
Your
into
side,
our side.
basically.
Okay.
which doesn't require
It
any.
doesn't require a vote or anything, does it?
That I took your motion to be that, Mr. Hagan, to approve the 2,000 for the East Coast Invitational and the 15,000 for the Mutter, and to be paid out of the tourism related.
John, you are just as perceptive as when I worked here. Thank you.
And if you I got a second on that motion if you need a second.
I believe we're talking about all that.
As long as we're
Yes.
good. Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm good. I'm sorry.
Gail, are you going to present the budget amendment, or just want to?
Yes, sir. I did not prepare a slide, but we're asking that you take a look at the budget amendment that's in your packet on page 12. You're anticipating an additional $140,000 in revenue for this year and $700 whopping dollars in investment earnings for the year.
Good job, Gail.
Well,
And Gail, unfortunately, I do have to ask, how come so much of it's going to administration here? We got.
Well, a portion of it goes to the city for collecting the tax.
Right.
The additional revenue is it's a percentage. And then we underestimated the audit cost by a little bit, and the insurance, we underestimated some of the administrative costs.
Okay. Well, I know you do the best you can. but
And that's
we
by
appreciate it.
statute, the money that,
That goes to the city.
Right, yeah,
There's a
administration.
limit on the amount.
right.
We spend way more time than what the city gets reimbursed.
Oh, I'm sure
Just
we-
gonna say, look at us.
We get a good, I'm sure we get a good deal. That's right, that's great. So we just need a motion to approve this amendment to the budget. Second, okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, very good. Well, good, we can move on then to item number 4, which is a marketing report with Teresa Beecham and Susan Dozier. Susan, I guess, is somewhere else going to join us visually. All right. Welcome, Teresa.
So,
I think they're trying to get Susan up on the system.
First, I'll just say thank you for giving us time during your meeting. I know you have a lot to discuss and a lot going on. We felt it was important to give you a brief marketing update. I know you've been here a while. We'll try to keep it brief. But there's some important information and some great information that you'll be glad to see. I suppose I'll just proceed.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
She'll join us maybe.
Okay. So as you recall, you approved some digital marketing campaign funds for May and June. So as soon as that was approved, we got things rolling, and this is an example of part of the campaign. There are 3 parts to the campaign. The first part is a target of, we titled it Empty Nesters. We call it what we want. So it's empty nesters, and the target there would be couples that would travel, that would be 35 plus, and the household income is under 150,000. This is an example of the ad. We chose video ads over static ads because video just outperforms static, hands down. So Kevin, with everyone's help, put together a couple of great videos for us, and this is an example of the ad that you would see in your Facebook feed. So when the Facebook viewer sees this ad, they have the option, once they watch the video, if we can sell them in with the copy that's up top, and we give that our best shot to draw their interest, and then we show them the video. If they're interested, if they like what they see and they have any interest in visiting the market or just curious, they click on the Learn More button, and it will take them directly to a page on the website. And that page will match the ad. So it's specific itinerary for empty nesters, for couples that want to come to town, where to eat, what to do, and all of that for a long weekend. So they find what they're looking for. So we want to show you the video. That was not part of the presentation. So the videos are 15 seconds, and you have to hit them pretty hard, like a 2x4 between the eyes, and get their attention. And so we opted to use the stats from the coolest town, from Susan's efforts with the writer that got us 25 coolest towns for Swansboro, because that helps us sell in who we are. So here's the meat. Are you doing this for me? Who's doing?
No, ma'am, they're doing it in the control room.
Thank you, Kevin. So here's the meat and here's the good stuff. So we look at, as an advertising agency, we always, as your professional, we have to monitor the campaign as it goes along. So halfway through the campaign, here's where we are. Total impressions is a number that represents every time the ad has been shown. So every time it appears, which is 74,000. The total clicks is we got someone's interest and they clicked on that Learn More. So that's pretty impressive at 976 for 30 days. The view-through rate is anybody that is expressed as a percentage, and it's people that watch the video through to completion. So they had to watch the whole video. They did not skip out of it. Total engagements at 8,000 is pretty impressive. That is, people either liked it, shared it, saved it for themselves, or they watched the video through completion. So we always monitor that number so that we know we're on track. Out of our ad hoc committee meeting, Chris and Rick had made a great suggestion that we use the itinerary as provide it to them as a PDF. They get requests from people that are checking in or may email them and say, you know, what is there to do? What else can we do? We're here for a wedding, but we got 2 extra days or whatever the case may be. So we turned this into a pretty impressive PDF and can send it to the hoteliers. They can email it, they can print it and have it at the desk, but they have it available. The second campaign that we put together is family fun, we called it. So it was targeting families, and the age group was 18 to 64. So again, a sample of the ad, and if they show interest, if they're interested, they will land on a different page that is specifically geared toward families within our website. So we'll show you that video. The good news on that one is it has gotten, it's picked up a lot of steam, and there's a lot of interest. Total clicks, again, showing intent is over 1,100, and the view-through rate is 80%. So people are definitely looking for something they can do. And by targeting households that are under 150,000, we feel like we match that with our hotels. Oh, hi, Susan.
Oh, hi.
I gotta turn this way.
I wanted to say something. I've worked on digital campaigns during the pandemic and after with a couple of other digital agencies. And I just wanted to say the kinds of traction we're getting with this campaign have outpaced some of my other ones with other digital partners. So a huge thumbs up to this whole team for working together, for the input from our hoteliers, and just for the positive traction we're getting. Not everybody is seeing these kinds of numbers. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, and so we also, as part of that April Ask, invited some media to come and visit us. One was Heidi Bellotto, and we can show that slide now. Heidi is a television host here. She's often on the Charlotte Morning Show on our NBC network. She has her own blog. She is a huge proponent of local food. She is in the process. She has pitched it. She's just waiting for a time to get scheduled with WRAL, which is the largest station in Raleigh, for their morning show. And one of the things that she did, she found out that Southern Seafood, which is the seafood place right there near our farmers market near Richlands, happens to be the biggest provider of seafood to some of the top chefs on the eastern North Carolina seaboard, to one of the big resorts in Washington, North Carolina, to one of the big resorts, or not resorts, but a James Beard nominated chef in Wilmington. And she asked me, she said, let's pop up on your Visit Jacksonville social feed, the place to let's get this up. And they were having a special event, and it got shared. It went viral. I mean, almost every chef in the state of North Carolina now knows that some of the best seafood on the coast of North Carolina is right here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. So that's the kind of expertise she brings, and that's the kind of work that I'm just really proud of, and I'm so glad to have a journalist like Heidi. I have to give a little heads up. The picture of her in this slide is Heidi at the Hampton Inn, and she made incredible friends with Regina Treesh, who is our waffle lady and has wowed many of our other media. And she and Regina actually went exploring with Maria and found some places that are going to blow your mind. And I can't wait for her to talk about them. We'll show her segment when it airs. Our next media visit was a much shorter one. It was much less expensive. And that was with Susan Kelly. She's a freelancer based in Raleigh for our state magazine. She toured the Lejeune Memorial Gardens. This will be for a story where she will have a personal reflection on what Memorial Day means, and they'll use the gardens as a springboard for that, and that will air next year. We still do have a little bit of money left over. So many media are scheduled so far out right now. Everything has just exploded as people are reopening. We're working to get some people in before the end of this fiscal. We may be able to do that, we may not, but we're working hard on that and laying the groundwork for some future media visits and media traction. So thanks.
So I'll keep it moving here. Scott is not with us, but you have in your packet, I believe, an update from the Sports Commission. We did want to mention New River Splash particularly. They had a successful event on May 22nd, and staff went out and got some footage, so we're going to show a quick video so you get the feel of it. But just know that there were over 161 people who registered for the triathlon, duathlon, and the 5K. And that number is just people that participated in the race, not the family festival. And 25% were from 2 hours away or more. So that's pretty significant. And that translated into 63 room nights.
Very good. Well, thank you, sir.
Any questions or comments?
Any questions for Teresa?
The full report I believe is included.
Yes,
If
okay.
you have any other questions later.
Looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It did. So anyway, that brings us to our last item on the agenda for director's comments. I'm thinking we've got, probably commented out tonight, probably.
Great itineraries, Teresa.
Yeah. That
I've
is
already
nice.
used the demo one,
You've already used it?
one of them.
Awesome.
All right.
the draft version.
All right, well, with nothing else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I want to ask one
Oh, one more-
question.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Hagan, you will not be here on the 22nd. The next meeting is the 24th. Will you be here for the 24th
Of June?
of TDA for the June 24th?
No, sir.
Then
I'll be
what
out
we
of town
might
that
do
whole-
is.
I'll be out of town that whole week.
Okay, we might look to determine what business is still needed to be accomplished before July 1st, or before the end of this fiscal year, and then get back. But for the moment, if it's acceptable, we'll agree that we will not meet June 24th, but we will try to find a date where all 6 directors are here before Mr. Hagan leaves for vacation. Is that acceptable, or
Sure. I'm not
if there's
going
any business? We will poll you, let's say, for the next meeting. 2 other very quick matters. You saw the area of the Jacksonville Marina, or Riverwalk Marina, being used. Very pleased to tell you that we have finalized the design of the facility that's going to be built there with restrooms and a very large presentation area. We hope to have that out to bid within the next 45 days. The other piece that I think you'll find interest is the new gym at Jack M. Yett is out for bid, and we expect to have those bids back in sometime in July, and hopefully have those in front of council for award in August. And that's going to be a full-size gym, the same size as the one at the Commons. Thank you.
The same, you're gonna have 2 floors?
Pardon me?
Both sides? You said the same as the Commons? We have 2 floors there.
Yet you will have one full college regulation court going end to end.
And then sidewalks?
And you'll have 2 side to side, just like you have at the Commons.
Keep the splash pads.
Yes, and I will also say to you that the splash pads opened early, and they were very heavily used, and as the sun comes on, more people will be out.
All right, thank you.
So we need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my.